The Council of Legal Education is the body that determines whether lawyers in Kenya can be admitted to the role of advocates of the High Court of Kenya, reserved for those who complete the CLE Advocates Training Program. However, some students allege that honesty seems to have been left out of the syllabus at the Council of Legal Education. For years, law students have struggled to pass the bar exam, which is surprising considering the entry requirements. In order to study law, a student would need a C+ on average in KCSE with at least a B in English or Kiswahili. In order to even qualify for the Advocates Training Program, they have to pass the pre-bar exam. So, these aren't exactly the kind of students you'd expect to struggle with exams now, are they? The Advocates Training Program tests future advocates in 9 units, requiring a minimum of 50% in each to pass. The assessment comprises of oral exams, which account for 20%, another 20% for projects, and coursework, which accounts for the remaining 60%. Unlike university, where projects are limited to one subject, the Advocates Training Program requires students to complete projects for all 9 units. For these projects, students are grouped into teams referred to as firms to collaborate on their submissions to achieve the 20% allocated to project work. After completing the coursework, projects, and oral exams, their knowledge on the coursework is tested through the bar exam. Upon passing, they proceed to a 6-month pupillage. Only after completing all these stages do they qualify to be admitted as advocates. Now, the issue arises with what students now call the 4 Cs: civil litigation, conveyancing, criminal litigation, and commercial transactions. While many pass other units, these 4 stand out, with students alleging that they are being intentionally failed in these critical areas. We examine why these units are pivotal and how they play a central role in the unfolding narrative. Let's break down the costs. To sit for the bar exams, students are charged 5,000 per paper, totaling to 45,000 per exam season. However, if you fail to attain the 50% mark, the real expenses kick in. You can either pay 15,000 for a remark or 10,000 to resit the paper. Now, failing isn't unusual. We've all faced setbacks at some point, right? But the real issue emerges when the scale of failure is so vast that it raises questions. A task force led by lawyer and senior counsel Fred Ojiambo revealed that between 2009 and 2016, 16,086 students sat for the bar exams. Shockingly, only 7,530 passed, while 8,549 failed, marking a failure rate of 53%. With students compelled to pay for receipts or remarking, it appears the system is akin to a lucrative cash cow, with some who have gone through this process referring to themselves as career students. Now, what happens when a student has failed one too many times and is tired of being just another grim statistic in task force reports? Desperation becomes inevitable. Enter the opportunists, those eager to cash in on this misery. Now, suddenly, the future champions of justice are met with demands for bribes. The very people training to uphold the law are being extorted for cash. Irony doesn't get much richer than this. As these reports show, the issue has been simmering for quite some time. Matters came to a head when the students staged protests on July 10th, 12th, and 17th, 2024. Rallying under the hashtag #OccupyCLE on X, they demanded accountability and answers. The spark. On July 9th, 2024, the Council of Legal Education uploaded results only to remove them shortly and replace them with a new set, issuing a vague statement that claimed the first results were from the November 2023 exams and not the April 2024 exams. However, this explanation did not sit well with the students. Hence, the protests. While these incidents with the results were the tipping point, it's important to look deeper into the issues from the students' perspective, which all ultimately trace back to the Council of Legal Education.
My name is Ivy Moturi, and I am a lawyer, and I am currently part of the Occupy CLE movement. So Occupy CLE is a movement that pushes for accountability and transparency in the legal community, but at the moment we are focused on accountability and transparency in the Council of Legal Education. I joined KSL in 2020 and sat my first regular exams in 2022, October of 2022. In that sitting, I passed 6 papers and failed 3. And I did the resits in April 2024. But when the results were announced on July 9th, 2024, there were several issues that affected the accuracy of my grades. First of all, there were 2 software issues and 1 human error. The software issues are that, first, my portal was already showing I had failed units before official upload and release of the results. So I went and followed up on this first issue on why my portal was already having results before time, and I was told it's a recurring system issue. So it's a software issue that CLE knows about, but it appears because it's profitable, if more people are caught up by that software issue, then more people are paying for receipts. So that was the first software issue. The second one was what they call a display mishap, and they communicated that the results that I received on 9th were actually for results for October 2023 series, but I did not register or sit for those exam series. I'd marked out the questions that I did. From the tabulated results that CLE sent me, they showed that I had marks for the wrong questions, for questions I had not attempted. So I followed up on that. Then the explanation was that my results were misprinted. So I was like, so now there's 2 software issues and 1 misprinting, which is a human error, and still, instead of going to get the booklets to verify my results, they require me to get court orders before they can retrieve my booklets. And then they still expect me to pay and receipt based on those faulty results. It's quite bothersome because this is the council that is like the final checkpoint before you become a practicing advocate in Kenya. It is the only institution that regulates who becomes an advocate in Kenya. Yet, even bare minimum results, they can't efficiently or accurately provide that public service. That was very worrying.
And if you're thinking, well, this is just 1 student, how bad can it really be? Meet Mabango Nyikuri, another student with his own set of frustrations with the Council of Legal Education.
My troubles began last year. I first sat for my bar exams last year in March. Instead of the normal, what people usually do and sit for all the exams at the same time, I decided to split them into 2 sittings in March and in November. So at the end of the 2 sittings, I had, I had 3 pending papers, which I didn't really mind, but my only issue was the explanation of the council or the council's unwillingness to satisfy my curiosity or my need for an explanation. Because, for example, in most of those units, I got between a 40, 2 of them I got a 48 and a 49. I applied for a remark, which is very expensive, 15,000, and neither of those papers went through. When we first do our exams, we spend 45,000, 5,000 on each paper, and 5,000 for an administrative fee. The pass mark is 50. When you don't attain the 50% pass mark, you have the option of remarking at 15,000 a unit, which sounds just exorbitant. And you can receipt at 10,000. Usually, you'll remark a paper, high chances of it going through are very minimal. So you'll end up spending, you'll have to go for the receipt. So in the long run, you end up spending 30,000 a unit just to pass it, at least 30,000, which is just doesn't make sense.
Just when the issues seemingly had reached their peak, a transfer student adds a new twist to the story. Let's call him Daniel. Daniel had pursued his bachelor's degree in India on a scholarship. He returned soon after, hoping to finish his education, but he had no idea what problems awaited him.
My troubles with the Council of Legal Education began back in 2018. Immediately I just came back to the country. I did my bachelor's in India, so I came back in 2018. So I did what's supposed to happen is once you land here, you go to the Council of Education, famously known as CLE, so I'll be using CLE most of the time. So you go there for clearance, basically to check if the curriculum that you did there covered the 16 core units that you're required to cover before you join the Kenya School of Law. So for my case, I went to CLE and they told me my curriculum had not covered one unit, that is Law of Equity and Trust. So they referred me to RIARA to take up the unit. So what happens before, as you're going to CLE, is not free. You have to pay 10,000 for the clearance. Okay. So once you're cleared, you're referred to RIARA. Once you go to RIARA, each unit is 20,400. Now when you get to RIARA tells you there are 2 other mandatory units that you have to take. You see, now that brings it to 3 units, each 20,400, including another administrative fee, should be around 7,000 to 10,000. Okay. And then another thing is when you go there, it's not like immediately you get there, the unit is readily on offer. Like for my case, the semester I registered for the unit, none of the units that I had registered for was on offer. So it means that semester just went like that. So I had to wait for the next semester. Again, it's not guaranteed all the units will be on offer because again, they have to meet a quorum, especially for the units that we are referred. You have to meet a quorum at least 10 students. So if you have a unit and you have 5 students, you'll wait until the day it will meet a quorum. So in the following semester, I got 2 units that were on offer, the mandatory units that I'm supposed to take at RIARA. So I was lucky enough, 2 weeks into the semester, I think it was 1 or 2 more students registered for now the unit that I had been referred. So now I had to do the unit. So I was lucky to have gotten all the 3 units in the same semester. That is after I had missed the previous one. So once you finish that, now that's when you come back to Kenya School of Law. Now for admission for the advocacy training program. So you sit for the classwork, you do the project work, and then oral exams, because the exam is structured into 3 whereby 40 marks is marked at case, and that is in form of project work and the orals. And then the written exam is the one that is administered by the Council of Legal Education. So you do your orals and project exam at KSL. Now you proceed to sit for the other exam, the written exam that is administered by CLE. So with my first sitting, I passed 7 subjects, units I mean, because there are 9. Again, you reciting the paper is not a guarantee that you're going to pass, because there are people who've been failing a single unit for more than 10 years. There are people who started sitting for the exam from 2012 up to now. They're still doing one paper. So one asks the question, is it that people are too stupid whereby you sit for 9 papers, you pass 8 at a single sitting, then you remain with 1 paper that you'll never pass? Because the issue has always been about accountability and transparency. Because if I sit for a paper and I failed, it's not bad to fail, because that's life. But at least the purpose of education should be helping you correct on the mistakes that you've made. So if I fail this exam for one of the other reason, let me know this way you went wrong. So if you do it this way, you'll pass, so that I know how I'm preparing for the next receipt, if that's the case. I'll give you an instance of the exam that was done last year in November. And I'll use the example of conveyancing. It had 800 students reciting for that paper. Out of the 800 students, only 100 passed. So the 700, the remaining 700 failed the same unit. So do you want to tell us that all these students are that dumb that they can't read for this exam? Mind you, there are students who are on scholarship. There are people who are being sponsored, so they know what that means. It's a matter of life and death. There are students who are paying for themselves. Like for my case, you cannot tell me I have 10,000, I'll pay 10,000 for a paper, and then just joke around because I want to fail. And when I know that is what is standing between me and my career, you know. So the issue of trying to make it as if we don't read or we're that stupid doesn't make sense. Because our clarion call has been, if indeed we failed, it is simple, show us our booklets, because they are hand-marked. Show me my booklet. If truly I failed, I'll go home comfortably, read again, come do the paper. But it's not that you're telling us you cannot give us our booklets, you know. And in some instances, they're citing the issue of data protection. Okay, it's the same Data Protection Act that guarantees the data subject access to their information. So on what account are you denying me my booklet? Because it will be a different case if I went there asking for someone else's booklet. Then the issue of data protection would make sense. But not when I'm asking for my own booklet. Why do you want me to come with a court order to access my own booklet?
Between software issues, wrong results being uploaded, getting grades for exams you didn't even take, the endless headache of being a transfer student, and sitting the same exam since 2012, it's no wonder students are desperate to escape this receipt remark cycle. Enter screenshots circulated on X of individuals kindly offering to help by leaking exams and adjusting results, for a price, of course. Another student, who we'll call Gloria, explains how the recruitment is done.
Okay, this is what happened. One afternoon, I'm just minding my business, and then a colleague tells me, do you know someone who sat for the exams and they would like to pass the exams? I'm like, what do you mean? So he goes and tells me, like, there's a colleague of mine who can guarantee you passes, but you have to pay a certain amount. I asked them how much. They told me it's 100,000 per paper. I was like, what? But of course, you know me, I read. When you've read, you don't fall into such traps. I was like, no problem, me, I don't want that deal. I'm good, I read, I'm a bright student. I mean, I've been passing all through my life. I was like, no, I'll just pass my exams. So somewhere around the release of the exams, like 2 weeks before the release, there was this tendency that was going around. You check your portal, you could see the units for receipt, yet the results were not yet out. So I see the units there, units for receipt. There is this shock that struck me. So I went back to this person. I wanted to find out. I'm like, you said you have a person who knows someone or who is in the CLE who can be paid for them to give us passes. He gave me a number. So I texted the number, trying to find out how these things work. And the person told me that, yeah, so for you, since I've I had gone to him directly, I was to pay 80,000, not 100. So he was telling me it's 80,000 per paper, you pay during the marking stage, and then after you pay, you're guaranteed of a clean pass. He assured me that people have paid, and he couldn't disclose their names because of client confidentiality. But he told me to come back. He asked me when I was going to receipt. I was like, I'll receipt in November. So I was like, immediately after the exams, contact me. I assure you, we are going to get clean passes. Of course, it was very heartbreaking to hear that we are competing. You're competing with people who have money. At the same time, you're struggling to get even the 10,000 for a receipt. It's really a tough job. You have to struggle. You know, you pull all resources to get 10,000 for a receipt. But there's someone who will pay this 10,000 for a receipt, and then after they receipt, during the marking, they again dash 80,000 or 100,000, and they just pass. When you are transnighting, you are not sleeping. You're competing with the Same people.
When reports of bribery emerged, the students helped us trace the individual responsible. The phone number allegedly used to solicit bribes was traced back to Emmanuel Rauto. With this lead in hand, we contacted him directly to hear his side of the story.
I'm not soliciting bribe from any person. And if you're sending any screenshot sent, they have to substantiate their claims.
Yeah.
Because probably there are maybe individual wants to malign my name, not official at CLE. I don't work with CLE. I only have my law firm as an advocate.
Tuko na evidence iko hapa hata kwa hii karatasi.
When a student fails and opts not to pay the bribe, choosing instead to retake the exam, passing becomes even more difficult with each subsequent attempt.
Another critical aspect that we want reformed is when we are sitting for the normal sitting, we do oral and project exams. Okay? So at what point do those marks cease to be mine? So that when I'm doing a receipt, the exam is being marked out of 60, not out of 100. Because during the normal sitting, it's out of 100, whereby 40 marks come from Kenya School of Law and then 60 marks come from the Council of Legal Education. So at what point do they omit our marks, and what is the rationale behind? So you cannot be reducing marks while increasing exam fee, because the normal sitting is 5,000 per paper, receipt is 10,000. Normal sitting you have 100 marks, receipt you're being marked out of 60, just the written exam only. So we want also the oral and project marks to be included when people are reciting the exam.
Given everything we have seen up to this point, it is possible to understand the outrage that eventually sparked the protests. But with some individuals retaking the same exam for 15 years and counting, what is different now?
Previously, people used to just let it pass. They created this notion that people fail because they don't study or they don't work hard. But I think with the current prevailing situation, people have actually come out in arms to question some of the policies in place. So the agitation just started. It's been there, but this is for the first time a multitude of students have actually come together to agitate as a group for the same cause.
The students have left no stone unturned in their efforts to get their concerns addressed. During the Occupy CLE protests, they were denied access to the offices, and one of the securities officers' response was telling.
Public office imesema nini? Atufanya nini? Boma gani? CLE nani? Umecall nani na umesema nini?
Hatuendi kwa nyumba ya mtu.
It seems access is only granted to those with the right owner in mind. The students wrote multiple letters to the Council of Legal Education. For instance, in a letter dated July 18, 2024, they detailed their grievances and provided evidence to support their claims. These complaints included the alleged purchase of grades, predetermined receipts, and the alteration of grades, with numerous students reportedly holding multiple transcripts for the same examination series. Their final concern leads us to issue number 9. Seeing that their efforts are not bearing fruit, the students turned to X and email to raise their concerns. But their efforts were often met with silence. Many reported being blocked on the platforms whenever they attempted to voice their grievances. If you're wondering whether the mass failures at the Kenya School of Law have led to any concrete action, there have been attempts. Former Attorney General Kihara Kariuki attributed the failures to students being tested on legal work that has not been taught, highlighting a significant gap in the system. In 2019, then CLE Chief Executive Jacob Gakeri was summoned by Parliament to explain the November 2018 bar exam results, where only 308 out of 1,572 students passed. KSL itself conducted a study, and these were their findings.
The study shows that the mass failure at the institution is tied to the grade 1 scores in their KCSE examination and the university they attend. In fact, 65.8% of students admitted to the Kenya School of Law said they had received little training in their undergraduate studies, a factor linked to the mushrooming of universities which offer substandard education. Another 74.3% of the students said the curriculum they were exposed to while at the university was inadequate.
In August 2024, current Attorney General Dorcas Oduor formed a task force to investigate the persistent failures. The team included representatives from the Law Society of Kenya, the Kenya School of Law, the Council of Legal Education, and the Kenya Law Reform Commission, who convened with the aim of addressing the issue. CLE has also invited students to mediation sessions, seemingly to better understand their concerns. However, they've responded with vague answers and little clarity. And so, between the finger pointing over university education standards, unexplained exam content, inconclusive investigations, and half-hearted mediations, it is the students who continue to pay the price professionally and financially.
My career is basically stuck. I have not moved an inch in my career. There's not really much of a difference between someone who will graduate from law school, undergraduate this year, and me. In the same place, we can't practice. The most we can do is maybe consult or do assistant roles at various legal departments. So literally, and it's gotten to, some of us have even dropped out of these careers. We're just doing exams because we started them, we can't leave it hanging. So most of us have lost motivation with the legal sector.
Every aspect of my life has just stagnated because there's a lot that rides on having a PC. Many of the jobs that I apply to, I don't get them because I don't have a practicing certificate. And you get a practicing certificate after completing the ATP program and passing with CLE. Once CLE clears you and you're admitted, now you get a practicing certificate. So you find that it's a public institution that needs remark and receipt fees to survive. So it is literally a public institution that preys on the very public it serves for its own survival. And then you see Public Service Commission is only announcing jobs that needs people with practicing certificates. So you're like, this government, the systems are not in our favor, because if at CLE someone can bribe, someone with 100,000 can bribe, then this is the person who will be available for that job in the public service.
In addition to this impact on their professional lives, the delays have taken a toll on their physical and mental health.
I have been affected greatly, not only academically, but also mentally, socially, and financially. How am I forgetting financially? Mentally, socially, financially, spiritually, by God. In all the aspects of life, I've been affected terribly. I did my first sitting in 2022 March. I passed 7, I failed 2. Now there's 2. It's really hilarious. How can I pass 7 and then I fail to get 2 correct? And these 2, they're not like the hardest things on planet Earth, So I've been resitting. In fact, the second time now, after I sat for the first sitting, now the first recit I did when the results came out, I was totally sick. I became sick. I used to go to hospital. I was treated. I went through every kind of test. There was nothing being found. Only to realize it was, depression or something. So I have this headache, not a headache, it's a migraine at this point that doesn't go away. I have to live on some painkiller. That drug for migraines, it's called Prizact. 4 tabs go for like 2,000. They have to have them like on a daily basis. It's not really easy.
As these students await their practicing certificates, they continue to count the losses they have experienced at the hands of the Council of Legal Education.
I, for one, even lost my job following up on this thing. Following up on Occupy CLE, I was fired. I was told I was being very selfish and I'm going after my own interests. I'm like, this is something that affects the whole legal community, because this is a regulator who determines who is entering the market with you. So if you're having corrupt people or incompetent people in the market, these are your new workmates. This is not about me looking for free marks. This is about ensuring that the advocates in Kenya's legal community are actually competent and they actually are keeping up or live up to the advocate's oath that they take at the Supreme Court during admission.
Concerned about the students' plight and the future of Kenya's legal profession amid bribery allegations, we reached out to the Council of Legal Education for their response, seeking clarity on the claims and a response to the affected students. Unfortunately, much like the students, we received no reply by the time this report went to air. While the process of releasing results in December 2024 saw some changes, most notably in timeliness and transparency in pass rates, for many, the damage has already been done. Many have had their ambitions of further education sidelined by previous delays. Others now live with stress-induced illnesses. Parents have watched their children wrestle with doubt and despair, ultimately returning home unable to make a living or advance their careers despite the investment in their education. This isn't just about exams. It is about lives derailed, opportunities stolen, and a system that owes answers to those it has left behind.
To the people in charge, I would like to ask you if this is the nobility of the profession that you are gatekeeping. Are the bad deals the nobility of the profession that you're gatekeeping? Is not including us or even hearing our views the nobility of the profession that you're gatekeeping? Is people buying grades the nobility of the profession that you're gatekeeping? We really just have to be honest with ourselves.